Hey guys, welcome back. Thanks for coming along. We did the interview with my grandpa, and that's what this whole video is going to be. It got kind of long. I debated whether I should split it up in a couple videos or not, but I just kept this to one video, and then the next video we actually went and kind of walked around the barn and stuff with my grandpa. Had him tell some stories, and then we kind of end that one out with some funny stories he's got. So this one's just kind of going to be the history. I hope you guys enjoy it. And I usually like to say let's get to work, but we're not really working in this video, so let's get to talking. All right, welcome back everybody. I'm here with my grandparents, Richard and Carson Sleep, and my wife Damaris. Maybe you guys just want to introduce yourselves and maybe say how long you've been married and have been ranching or something, and then we can get into the history or something.
Yeah, well, I'm Richard, and I've been running the ranch since I was 23 years old.
Yeah. So that's as old as me right now.
Yeah.
Running it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because your dad.
My dad died when he was 50, and I was 23.
So you had to take over right away.
Yeah, nobody else around.
Yeah.
My mother helped me, but she wouldn't do too much. She wasn't used to that.
Yeah. Yeah, that'd be a big learning curve.
Yeah.
I don't think I could run it all right now.
You learn fast.
Yeah, you do learn fast.
Yeah.
Yep.
What'd you say, Karen?
Well, Rich and I have been married for 56 years in June, and I grew up in Sioux Falls, which is South Dakota's big city. So after we got married, I always say I took a course in barnyard science because I had never lived on a ranch. And so I followed Rich around for that summer and his dad, and was so glad for a year. I was so glad I did, because then when his dad passed away, I did know enough to be able to help him out.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Perfect. Well, if you just want to start from the beginning, Grandpa, just with when our ancestors came over and where they came from, where they went. And
Well, my great-grandfather came from England there, and he in 1883, and he came over by himself and settled up in Lead and worked in the mine for a couple of years and got to get enough money he had there.
so they were mining gold there, right? At that time?
Yeah.
Okay.
At the in the homestake mine.
Yeah, and so then he homesteaded this place shortly after that, and then 2 years later, in 1885, I sent over for his family to come over here. His wife and 7 kids came over that 1885 and joined him, and then they lived here all their life, and they had ended up having 10 children, and my grandfather Alfred Sleep, he bought my great-grandfather's share of the place and that, and before he did that, my great-grandfather farmed, ranched out here, and my grandfather, he built a filling station in town and started selling gas, and he and my dad had a bulk service business that they had, and that was one of the first stations in west of Missouri.
Really? The first gas station?
Yeah, one of the first in Spearfish, and there might have been another two in there.
Okay.
West of the Missouri River.
Mm-hmm.
One of the first west of the Missouri.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So they came over because they were miners in England, is that correct?
Well, I think he worked in a mine for a while, but they had some kind of business. I never did see what it was, and they sold that, so his wife and family could make it over here and get enough money to come over.
Okay. So they moved over because he had a little knowledge. And then when he got enough money, he bought this place as the homestead?
Well, you could get, in those days, you could homestead 160 acres and that, and all you had to do was live on it and improve it.
Okay, so they got it
So,
during the Homestead Act.
Uh-huh.
Okay, that makes
He
sense.
got that. When my granddad, he homesteaded up in Bear Creek, and he had a sawmill up there, and he sawed lumber and sawed lumber for the barn over here and for the house. They
For the house, that was
built
this one
house.
originally?
No, it was the original house burned down a
Okay,
couple of years after they built it, and that. And they built. This is one they built after that from
okay,
lumber he sawed
right.
and that. And then he worked in. My granddad worked in the station quite a while, and then a lot of years, and his dad helped him with the bulk service and that, and then we moved out here when I was 1, and he started ranching, and my granddad did work up in the hills, and he did the work down here.
Okay, so when did they first buy cows? When they homesteaded, probably?
Well, I don't know exactly when they did. They had cows, and they had some sheep, and they had pigs, and they had all kinds
Chickens.
of things to start off with. My great-grandfather, my grandfather probably bought some of the first cows.
Okay,
He bought some buffalo too.
really?
He bought 12 head of buffalo from Custer State Park, and didn't have anything to haul buffalo in at that time, so they built crates and put them in crates and shipped them on the
Really?
crates up here.
No kidding.
And that, and they got to be so it was hard to keep in, so they got rid of them, and then they went to the cattle.
Okay, so would that have been when he lived up at Gabe's, at the potato patch? Or,
No, he never did live up there. He lived in town most
No,
of
we
the
lived
time.
here.
Or
They lived here until 29.
Lived here, yeah.
so you're,
And his sister lived, and her family lived up in Bear Creek.
okay, so it would have been your uncle,
Yeah.
your aunt and uncle, great aunt
Great.
and uncle. Okay, and they raise produce for the miners, is that correct?
I guess so. Yeah.
Okay. Okay,
Both here and up there.
both places. Okay, so your great granddad lived here and would sell produce to the miners?
Yeah, they'd take things up there. Yeah.
Okay, gotcha. Cool,
So,
yeah. And then,
so then my granddad died when I was 13 there. So then I took over his duties at 13. And then my dad died when
Well,
he
you
was
gotta
only
tell them what
50.
your granddad's duties were that you took over.
Oh.
yeah,
Well,
that's alright.
He worked, my granddad, of course, he worked in town in the station for a few years, and that had somebody help him, and that he was in charge of fixing and getting people to fix fence up in the hills, and then he spent a lot of the summer spraying weeds there.
Okay.
So that's what I did, sprayed weeds for a month or more.
So that was on the private?
Uh,
Okay. When did you guys first get the Forest Service permits?
oh,
Is that still after a ways?
oh yeah, I bought them after my dad died.
Okay,
We
okay.
had
So we'll get to that.
we had one small permit my dad did, and then I bought the rest
Okay,
later on.
okay. So when your granddad was around, and it was you, your dad, and your granddad, you had cows down here, and you'd summer them on the private ground up there? Or how would you
Yeah,
guys?
we did.
Okay, okay. And how did the ranch land, how'd you acquire it up there?
My dad and granddad bought that over the years up there.
Okay.
We've had that's been in the family for quite a while.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. That's what I thought.
You could talk
This,
about the
this-
fact that they were mining claims.
This down here, why they first homesteaded a couple places and then bought other places as they could afford them and as they came up for sale.
Yep. But yeah, what were you saying, Grandma?
Well, the property up in the hills it's mining claims.
Okay.
And so I imagine that they accumulated them as people, well, like, there was a sawmill that had some property and that did a lumbering business, which is, and just some other mining property, and people weren't making any money, and that,
Had to get rid of their
mhm.
mining claims, and little
So
sawmills were running out of
His
business.
grandpa was able to pick up those pieces, and
Okay.
like the potato patch that we talk about.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm sure that's where they raise potatoes to haul lead
Mm-hmm.
to sell to the miners, and a lot of the people around here, that's what they made their, to begin with, taking produce up to the miners up in Lead.
Sure. So were they still mining when they had the filling station in town? Like, were they still mining up there? Not your granddad.
No,
Homestake.
Homestake is, yeah, it was running up there.
When did it
I
close?
don't know what time of the year, but it was in operation as long as we've been here anyway.
Okay.
A little longer probably.
Yeah.
Well, it started in 1876, and was it in the 80s or 90s that it closed down? You can't remember.
Yeah, I don't remember the dates.
Yep. That's
But I mean, it was a big business.
right. Right. So they didn't. So your dad had the filling station then.
His grandpa.
Your grandpa.
Yeah, my grandfather did.
Okay.
They had the bulk business and two, they had a building there. One of the buildings it's over here, the machine shed now is a bulk building for having housing, different things for the bulk business.
Okay. So he, at that time, he lived here, and at one point the house burned down, right? And they lived in the dugout.
No,
Well, they
the
built
dug-
the house right away, but they did live in the dugout for a little while. But that might have been before they even built the first house.
Oh, it could have been before they even
Yeah,
built the first house.
I think they had a house in town. My grandfather, he I don't know the time and dates and that.
well, his
They had to jump out and get the kids out of the upstairs there, and there was snow on the ground, so they could jump into the snow.
Really?
And then one of them went to the neighbors and got help. And
Yeah.
when it burned down, and they started building back in the same place not too long later.
Really?
right away. In those days, that's what they did. All the neighbors would come and whip it up in no time.
Yeah.
And the grandparents lived. Rich's grandparents lived here until 1929, when they moved to Spearfish.
Okay.
And that's when they had the gas station.
Mhm.
Started the gas station business. They still had his ranch here, did his ranch work here.
Okay. So he was doing both.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then when Rich's dad came back to help, he went to University of Wyoming, got a business degree. And he was going to go into business with his dad, but he could not stand the smell of gas. It made him sick.
Oh, really?
So then,
Your dad?
Yeah, his
Okay.
dad.
Mhm.
And so they moved out here when Rich was little,
Mhm.
and they lived here in this house until 56,
Okay.
1956.
Okay.
And then they moved down to the headquarters.
Where my parents lived now.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then when we were first married, we lived here for the first 3 years we were married. Then we moved down to the headquarters where we lived for 43 years.
Yeah. And then
Now we are back here for
Back here.
the last 9 years.
Yeah. Yep.
They
And
got electricity out here in 1946 and that.
Okay.
And the neighbors would all get together at least one day a year and go fix the electricity poles and insulators and whatnot.
Really? All around the area?
Mm-hmm.
Did they do that with the telephone people? I bet they did that with the telephone too,
Probably.
because they strung the line on the power poles.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, the same thing.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting.
And even when you were here, didn't they use the old phone that
That
you?
was the first phones we had, was the crank phones there, and you would, like our number might have been one long and two shorts, or one short and three longs or something, and you rang that and you could hear it all over the neighborhood then, and proper person would answer, and the others might leave it alone, or they might listen in.
They could listen in on your conversation.
Yeah.
They even did that when we were first married, because we had like they called party lines,
Mm-hmm.
and we had the rotary phone, and I suppose we probably had 6 people on our line when we were first married.
Oh.
From in the area where we lived.
Yeah. So you couldn't
And
talk
here-
about anything embarrassing.
It's pretty funny. I think one lady, that's how she wrote articles in the paper. That's about in our paper they would have community news, and that's probably where she got her news. She just
listened
listened.
up on the gossip.
Yeah.
That is funny. That is pretty. So when your dad passed away and you were 23, how did things start out taking over the ranch?
Well, had a lot of work to do. I
Yeah.
put in a lot of hours.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Day and night, and
And you guys were married a year?
Living here.
Okay.
We were living here.
So it'd be just about us right now.
Just like
yeah,
that.
That's
Yep.
right.
Okay. Married a year. Okay.
Yeah.
That'd be us trying to run the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it wasn't quite as big.
Oh.
That is,
Yeah. A little different, but
Yeah.
but it was big enough.
yeah. No kidding.
Yeah.
So you didn't have any permits at that time?
We had 25 head, so
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
Dad got that when they started issuing permits. It was just kind of like like buying the land. The forced the United Government started issuing permits to eat the grass and that, and keep the fire danger down.
Sure. It's fair danger. Okay. So you had a 25 head permit at that time? Okay.
I bought the rest when I was working.
Yeah. Do you remember what years you bought the 3?
You know, I got them. I got the time done. I don't remember.
Yeah.
I think I can kind of tell you. We had some neighbors that was a brand inspector, and he would hear about these things through his brand inspecting and would tell Rich about. And one of them, the one that we call the Rochford one, was the first one he bought, and that one I think was in the late 70s. The kids were pretty little.
Okay.
Might have been mid 70s. And then the other one had to have been before maybe 80, because we had that big storm in 82 where we had 5 feet of snow up there.
Mm-hmm.
And that was in 82, and we had that before. We had it before that. So.
Okay.
And it was
That was Shine Crossing?
Yeah.
Okay.
they call it Wildcat.
Wildcat one. And then Bosquella is more recent.
Well, that
right?
was your dad that got it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My dad got that
From the Anderson brothers.
one.
And they were, and that helped a lot to be able to,
Yeah.
add to the ranch.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Can you guys think of any good stories?
Well, we got
Maybe
lots of
from-
good stories.
Yeah. I love good stories.
I have lots of good stories.
Yeah. Yeah.
You've heard some of them, Carson.
Yep, I have. Some people would enjoy them.
Being married to your grandpa is an adventure.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the neighbors say, well, he's got 9 lives and he's used up a lot of them.
Yeah. There's not many left.
So we better be careful.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, if you can think of any, or some of your favorites, or your favorite times, or hard times, or I know it's kind of putting you on the spot, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
But, yeah.
So, well, my granddad, he was we were running the station while he was also chief of the fire department for a lot of years. And he was the worked with the city, and he designed, and he only went to as far as 8th grade in education, but he designed the city hall in Spearfish,
Really?
the old one the way it is now, and that, and so it did a lot of different things
Yeah.
for the community. And that.
He had a couple of gas stations, and he had a grocery store.
Wow. Had a few
He
things.
was quite an entrepreneur.
Mm.
Was on the school board.
So the city hall is still there today,
Mhm.
and that he designed that.
Mhm.
And then the gas station is still there today too.
Mhm.
It's just a different name. William Standard
Yeah.
is what it was now, but it used to be Sleep Service Station. Is that
Sleep
Sleep
Super
Super.
Service.
Sleep Super Service?
And it is pretty much just exactly the way it was all those years ago.
It looks about the same.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, I was in there the other day and saw the picture on the wall. They still have a picture of it with the Sleep Super Service sign, and it looks pretty much the same.
He had an awning over the pumps there, and they decided to take that awning off, so they took it off and loaded it on a truck. It was pretty good size, and hauled it out to the ranch here, and it's now the roof for part of the shop,
Oh,
most of the shop.
yeah. Oh, that is pretty cool. So they
Jacked it
just
up.
built walls under it, and
Uh-huh.
Hmm.
Jacked it up, built walls under it, and went another end on it. It was a little more end on. You could kind of see where the roof is.
mhm.
Take a look.
Yeah, I'll have to look a little closer.
So, yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
So, yeah. So I was on the school board for 18 years, and with the Farmers Ranchers Co-op there, most of the taxes, or a lot of the taxes go through the school district, so it's important to be conservative on those things, and
Yep.
that's so that it helps everybody involved,
Yeah.
taxes and that, so.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
See how your money is spent.
Mhm. Yep, you want to know where your dollars are going.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, so.
How about the barn? What can you tell us about the barn?
Well, the barn was built from lumber my granddad cut up in a sawmill in the canyon and hauled down, and that was either built in 1914 or 1916.
It was
Okay.
1914.
1914.
It was the year your grandparents were married.
Wow.
And they
1914.
built it, and had a rock mason, a guy that did rock work, just laid rocks on the ground. There's no foundation there. They just bared off the ground and started laying rocks and built it up.
Wow.
And that, and they put a loft up in it, a big loft at the peak of it, and they had a sling that they could pick up hay down on the bottom, loose hay at that time, and haul it up, and a railing to put it inside, and move it inside.
Okay.
And when they didn't have hay in there, why, they put tongue and groove lumber in on the floor, so they could use it for community dances.
Really?
So
Did they do that often? Do you know?
I
Dances?
don't know at the
I
time.
think they did it quite a little in the 20s.
In the 20s?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that would be fun.
Mm-hmm.
And the piano is still up there.
Yeah.
Yeah, huh?
And we always said, well, so-and-so played the piano, but then it was decided that she couldn't play the piano, so she wasn't the one who played the piano. So I don't know if it was Ethel Baker that played the piano, or because she did play, but
Mm.
it was you know, did not get passed down who the actual piano players were.
Yeah. Yeah, that's probably true.
Somebody in the neighborhood though played
Someone in the
piano,
neighborhood.
yeah.
Yeah, it's weird to think about the dances. There wouldn't be just music you'd have on an iPhone, and somebody would have to be playing the piano or
Yeah.
playing the guitar, and everybody dancing.
In those years, people got together a lot in the neighborhood, you know, because and there was a lot more people that lived because of the homesteading and like up these canyons, that there was actually quite a community, and they had schools over in Wyoming, schoolhouses, but they just couldn't make a living. It was too dry and nothing. They couldn't make a living on
So
160 acres, you know.
Right.
But there was a lot of little kids, and so there was a lot of schoolhouses.
Wasn't there one just up the road?
Yeah, we had Beaver Creek School District, which is just
Right at the end
just
of
up
the
from
trees.
the barn there a ways and that. And there was another one over by Larson's there.
Okay.
Another one down by Crow Creek, and another one by Chicken Creek down there.
So that would have been 4 schools and.
And then there was
Well, they had to ride horseback or something to
Right.
get to those places. So
Yeah.
it wasn't an easy job to get to those.
No, not really.
and there was quite a few kids in each of those schools.
Really? Like, would you say 20? 20?
Well,
15?
we used to have the books that went to the Beaver Creek schoolhouse,
Oh.
and so it listed, you know, who went there.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't remember. I don't know what we did with them.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I don't remember how large it was.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that's about the history of the barn.
Yeah.
The barn.
And is
It
it?
was always nice to keep stuff in, but when you got bales, you had to throw them up to
Oh.
get them in, so it wasn't easy to get them in.
Yeah.
I can remember helping stack those bales in the one summer.
Yeah.
It was just terrible.
Stacking square bales up.
Yeah.
in there.
He always liked to stack square bales, because that's how, you know, the modern guys kept they have their modern equipment for weightlifting and
Yeah.
stuff. That was his weightlifting.
Yeah.
Was stacking.
Yeah.
But
You'd be
but
pretty
it's-
tough.
yeah, he liked that for that reason. But then when time went on, it really took too much time, you know. So then they had accumulators. And so we had an accumulator that we stacked with a tractor, and then
So you could accumulate 8, 10 square bales.
yeah, and then after a while they came out with the big round baler, and your dad I remember when he was 14 years old, he baled the hay, all of our hay.
Really?
Yeah, so he's been baling hay a lot of years.
Yeah. Yeah, that's 40 years almost.
Yeah, yeah, and that they all started to our boys started to, how they learned to drive was raking hay.
Oh, sure.
And
Little Ford 8M
with
tractor.
with the little Ford tractor.
Really? Cool.
All little boys loved the little Ford tractor
Yeah.
and the little Ford Jeep.
How much horsepower would that have been? A little Ford tractor.
Oh. Well, I don't know. What they
Is it
were.
that blue one?
I
That's.
don't know if they were 50 horsepower. Even.
Yeah,
I don't
maybe
think
not.
they
It's the
were.
one that somebody took
No,
all
it
apart.
isn't.
Oh.
It's one that's down the shed there.
Okay.
Where your dad lives.
Okay. That one that's still in there. Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the little Jeep that the blue Jeep. Your dad always called it the little Ford Jeep because it was little,
Mm-hmm.
you know, like the tractor.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we have to talk about the other spray Jeep.
Yeah.
Rich's grandpa had this old spray Jeep that he got. It was a World War II Jeep, wasn't it?
It was in 1946.
Oh, then it missed World War II.
Jeep
Okay.
there, and he bought it used, I think, or maybe, I don't know where he bought it, maybe Chamberlain there. It was one of the first Jeeps this side of the Missouri too.
Really?
Whoever had it before him used it to plow with.
Oh.
And that,
No kidding.
and then he got it up and he used it to go up in the woods with there. Before that, he had an old Oldsmobile car that was his Jeep.
Really?
That's how I got around with that.
Really? So that was his runaround, was his little
Yeah.
Jeep
But then when,
Well,
Run around
just
car.
working up in the hills.
working?
Yeah. but then
We
when,
used spray Jeep
Mhm.
as time went on, and that's, we had a 50-gallon barrel in the back of that. That's what
Yeah,
I used to spray with when I started spraying.
cool.
when we were first married, and I remember looking in the window because he put it in that little garage, little white garage. And I thought that was just a piece of junk.
The Jeep.
But he'd get it revved up every summer, and like he said, he'd have this 50-gallon barrel on the back. He'd take the boys with him, and they'd splash over the top of them.
Oh, the barrel.
Not
of
very
spray.
good, yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway,
It was solid on top, but not around where the hose was too
No.
much.
Yeah.
anyway, he would drive. That was his beloved Jeep. He loved that Jeep.
Mhm.
He loved that Jeep.
Yeah.
And it was just so simple. He could get it, working, but then he could hunting for tires that would work for it.
No stuff.
And I always told him, I says, well, you probably have to be buried in that Jeep because you love
Yeah.
it so much, And he, as time went on, though, he would like the brakes wouldn't work.
Hmm.
And he would talk about, coming down Higgins Gulch with no brakes.
Yeah, that'd be pretty sketchy.
But anyway, when the boys were teenagers, then they would go up and spray with that old Jeep.
And it didn't have
And
brakes.
it didn't have brakes.
Yeah, my dad tells stories that they'd be going up and over the hills spraying, and you'd have to learn to shift really good or look for a good tree to stop you. A big stone.
I dumped it over on its side one time, and it didn't go clear over, just on the side there. And, I told her dad, well, how are we going to get that out of there? He says, we're going to bring a crawler up and bury it.
He wanted to just bury it.
So what? How did you get it back up?
Oh, it wasn't too hard to get it up.
You just pushed it up.
Just pushed it up my head.
So anyway, one time it snowed early, and he was down in Bear Creek spraying weeds, and it snowed, and he didn't get it out of there, so it spent the winter down there.
Oh, yeah.
And Keith Williams, who had the Williams gas station, he was hunting. I don't know what it was. He was telling Richard about seeing this old piece of junk down in there. And where did that come from? He says he was so insulted because it was his
Wasn't
beloved
a piece
Jeep.
of junk? Yeah. Oh, that's
So
funny.
anyway, the years went by, and finally, he had to give up his 50-gallon barrel and get a much bigger tank, which he really does enjoy having.
Yeah. Yeah, no kidding.
Because it got so he couldn't get that Jeep fixed anymore.
Yeah.